¿Qué tal a todas y a todos? Os doy la bienvenida a una nueva entrevista aquí en PipeBomb Podcast. Soy Jonathan Romero y esta semana volvemos a cogernos las maletas para viajar directamente al continente norteamericano, en concreto a Quebec, Canadá, para hablar con una de las leyendas vivas de la lucha libre profesional. Lleva más de 20 años en el negocio, ha luchado para grandes empresas y contra grandes nombres como Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Sabu o Finn Balor. En 2004 abrió su propia escuela que todavía mantiene a día de hoy y también ha servido en momentos ocasionales como entrenador para WWE, en primer lugar para Florida Championship Wrestling y posteriormente en el Performance Center. Y por si esto fuera poco, además ha participado en un episodio de Dark Side of the Ring, este documental de Vice, interpretando a Abdullah the Butcher en ese episodio de Bruiser Brody. En este episodio tenemos el placer de contar con nada más y nada menos que con Dru Onyx. Dru, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to PipeBomb Podcast.
Yo, happy to be here, Jonathan. Thanks for inviting me.
The pleasure is mine, of course. First of all, congratulations on being inducted into the Quebec Hall of Fame. What this accomplishment means to you, man?
Well, acknowledgement of my body of work and my passion is always good. Mm-hmm. You always want to be acknowledged by your peers. And it was a surprise because I didn't know that I was being inducted. I found out from another promoter. He called me up and he's like, congratulations. And I'm like, thanks. I'm like, for what? And he's like, you've been inducted. I'm like, really? And so I thought that was interesting because I didn't have any interaction with the governing body that was doing that. Uh-huh. Funny thing about it was I think 10 years prior, they tried to have me inducted earlier. And I said, no, my career is not finished. Not that it's finished now, but 20 years in, it makes more sense, as I'm ending, to the finish line to be acknowledged. But it's cool. It lets people know that I've been very prominent in Quebec, which is in Canada. Yep. I've done a lot as a promoter, a wrestler, and a teacher. So once again, to have that acknowledged is a beautiful thing.
How do you feel? How are you going with all this situation, all this pandemic situation we're living through?
Well, it sucks, like not just for me, but for everybody. Yeah. It's hard here because they closed down the gyms. Oh. They imposed a curfew for 8 o'clock, so you're not allowed to be out on the streets at 8 o'clock. Without trying to critique the government, I find it's very interesting what they allow open. Like a liquor store can be open. Yeah. There's places that sells marijuana that can be opened. These are not necessarily conducive to marijuana, maybe just for medicinal purposes, but a gym which would help you relieve stress, boost your immune system, allow you to interact with people. And of course, I don't mean that all gyms have to be run, to the point where it's not careful. Like make sure that you're doing the recommended requirements for the safety measures. If those are implicated, I think that would be conducive. So, it's been 8 months here that has no gyms. They allowed for 1 month and then they closed it down again. But so it sucks. But, the thing is, we are like the school that I run, the Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo. Yep. We provide online service. So we did a course online. So we've been doing that. We do also Zoom trainings. So whether you're a wrestler or not, you want to get in shape, you contact me, we book an appointment, and then we do it over Zoom. So it just gives us different opportunities to find revenue to help enhance, the product and promote it out there.
It's kind of reinvent yourself, no?
Yeah.
With the situation. Yeah. How has affected this COVID-19 Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo? Because here in Spain, there's some academies that now has less students than before the pandemic. That also happened there with you?
Well, of course, because pro wrestling is a physical contact sport, yep. And they want to interact. But people have been starving for pro wrestling for so long now. They want to take part of anything that has to do with pro wrestling. So, like I said, this online course that we're currently doing, there's 24 people that joined in for 3 days a week, And usually in the wrestling school, I'd have about 30, maybe 35, and there'd be no more than 15 to 20 per class when we had it. So it's basically the same. It's the same amount. So it hasn't dipped down as far as that much. But I'm sure as soon as they allow the curfew to be released and gyms are allowed to reopen, it's going to be almost like the same as, when it's New Year's resolution, everybody wants to get to the gyms.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be twice as much now, because those who love wrestling and may have taken it for granted won't. And those who always wanted to be a wrestler, now they'll be like, you know what? There's no better time than now. Let me do it. So I'm actually looking for. There's going to be an outburst, and there's going to be looking for a lot of people that's going to be signing up. So
when do you?
I'll be ready when they.
Yeah. So when do you think the government will allow you or the gyms to open? Do you see a
I
date?
have no idea. I have no idea. We've heard rumors that possibly at the end of the month, but they've said that last month and they said the month before. Yeah. So I'm sure, it has to fit their agenda, whatever it is, as far as, what they feel is going to be safe for the people here, and we just have to respect that.
The first question that I want to ask you about, what is, or for you, who is better, Dru Onyx? And I don't mean, of course, if you can go to Wikipedia, or you can search on the internet, we all know who Dru Onyx is and all the championships you won. But for you, especially for you, who is Dru Onyx?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you can't believe everything you see on the internet. You know what I mean? I finally looked at my Wikipedia page, and there's so many mistakes. But you know what? Yeah. I don't have the patience to correct all of them. But
yeah.
Dru Onyx as a wrestling character-wise, he's just a really overconfident, outrageous character. Somebody who loves wrestling and everything that's involved in it. Basically Dru Onyx is an extension of my personality. Everybody has certain personality qualities that they have. Mm-hmm. This is just zoomed to 1,000% and hit with lightning and steroids. So, at times I could be outrageous. So I'm really outrageous. Sometimes I could be a smart ass. So as Dru Onyx, I'm really a smart ass. Majority of the time I love wrestling. So Dru Onyx for him is all about championships. It's all about regality. It's all about being acknowledged as one of the best. He's oblivious, of how bad behaved he is when he's a heel. As a face, I'm shaking hands and I'm kissing babies. But as a heel, I'm just causing chaos and trying to steal your wife. So that's who Dru Onyx is.
That's great.
As a wrestler. As a coach, he is somebody that's very passionate, wants the very best for his students. Hard but fair. I'm tough. I'm from the old school of discipline. Yep. You don't talk back to your coaches. There's never been a time I played football to a professional level. I played contact sport. You never mouthed off or even questioned your coach. So I come from that. So even though like right now it's a different environment and people are different and different perspectives, the whole idea is to still instigate, discipline, motivate and educate at the same time, teach you the fundamentals of pro wrestling, but let you have fun, let you enjoy the ride, but still work hard for it. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, when they want to get into pro wrestling, they have these dreams. But if you don't fulfill your dreams, if you don't try to make your dreams a realization, they become fantasy. So I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you to waste my time. So when you come into my dojo, you have to understand this is a place of higher learning, and I expect the very best of you. You know what I mean? Yep. So that's who I am as a instructor and as a promoter. I'm a very fair promoter. Usually, you always hear negativities about promoters. I try to give people opportunities to promote my brand and their brand, to give them exposure and to entertain. So that's who Dru Onyx is. it's like I got schizophrenia. I got 3 different personalities, and that's just Dru Onyx. We're not even talking about Soa and Min.
I think you described it better than Wikipedia did. Congratulations on that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Your career started in 2002 in Quebec, and in your first year, you won your first championship title. Also, you defend your title against El Generico, known now as Sami Zayn, and even you team up before being champion. Tell us about how do you remember your early years as a professional wrestler?
All right, so a little bit of correction.
Okay,
so once again, Wikipedia strikes again. I started out actually in 1999.
Okay.
So my first official match was against my teacher. His name was Mark the Grizzly. He was the Quebec champion.
Yep.
And I main evented my first match. I main evented at an arena show against him for the Quebec championship. So that was the first time. I didn't win it, but that was my first match. And my experiences at that time, it was cool. I was just coming back from an NFL football combine. I was playing semi-pro for the Lake City Stars. So I wanted to get into wrestling. Was a fan ever since I was a child. Studied it like it was trigonometry. So when I had the opportunity to start wrestling, it was a new experience, but it was everything that I saw before, everything that I wanted to get into. I had great teachers. Like I said, I had Mark the Grizzly, who his strongest point was teaching safety and be fundamentally sound physically. You know what I mean? Like psychology, I learned from a lot of other people. Not that he didn't try to give me ring psychology, but the emphasis was how to be fundamental in the ring. So he taught us how to bump properly. You know, anybody who went to his school knew how to, and when I mean bumps, break falls. We could break fall from any position. You know, to graduate, we even had to finish doing 10 break falls on concrete. So picture a concrete floor and doing, so that was it. So it was a lot of fun. I was with other friends, and we were traveling, and we were all rookies, and we all loved the business, and we wanted to add to the business. I won actually my first championship from working with Smith Hart from the Smith Brothers, the Dungeon. So that was my first championship, and I think that was in 2001, I think, maybe. So Smith Hart saw me at a promotion. I was wrestling for the Ledukes. Paul Leduc, he had an organization, and so did his son, Paul Leduc. So Smith Hart saw me there, then took me to the school, and then we did a tour, and that's when I had my first championship. But then after that, like you mentioned, I got a chance to work with El Generico, and it was cool because I noticed very quickly his potential. You know what I mean? He was really good. The fans loved him. He was, he was like the ultimate underdog. So when I had an opportunity, when I had a championship and I had to face him, it was so funny. He's like, okay, I have all these ideas. And he's like rambling it off. Like, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. And I thought it was funny because he was a rookie. And I was 4 years in at that time. Still pretty much a rookie, but I had more experience than he did. And I'm the champion, and he's telling me how the match was going. But it was fundamentally sound. So, we both then worked on it, and it was good. And you could not tell at that point that was his 10th match. Wow. He performed very well. So I wasn't surprised where he went after, because he had a love for the sport, and he was a practitioner. He really wanted to get himself better and better. So yeah, we worked a tag team together, and then after that we worked against each other. And then I saw him at a tryout. I was in a tryout in, I believe 2010, I want to say, in Ottawa, Ontario, at the Scotiabank Arena. At the time, I think that's what it was called. And it was before SmackDown, so he was there. He wasn't in the tryout, but that's when I saw him. And then I saw him independently at shows and stuff like that. And then what's ironic was the last time I saw him, we both live in Laval, and that's where he's from. And we both share the same gym, but we used to go at different times. I walked in, I saw him. And he didn't tell me he was going to the WWE. I guess you have to keep it on the down low. So he didn't tell too many people, and same with Kevin Steen, but that's later. But he's like, I saw him working out, and I told him, I said, you know what's funny? It's a full circle. I was watching his matches in Japan and different parts of the place. And at that point, it inspired me to go back out and wrestle overseas, because I did that at first. Then I stayed in Canada for the most part. But then watching his matches, I'm like, you know what? I need to go to Japan. You know what? I need to go back to England. I need to go back to Ireland. So I was telling him that. And he said, that's ironic, because when he started, him and Kevin used to look at what I was doing and saying, if Dru Onyx can go and travel in Ireland and England, you know what I mean? It tells us we don't have to be confined in Quebec, and our horizons could be higher.
Oh my God.
So as I'm watching him, they were watching me. So like I said, it was a full circle.
Yeah.
And then I found out a week later, he was at the Performance Center. I'm like, this guy didn't even tell me, but to each his own.
It's kind of a double inspiration. You inspire them.
And that's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. You're going to learn that your students can teach you stuff. Like, first of all, in pro wrestling or in any kind of genre, sports, business, in or out, if the minute you feel that you don't have to learn or you stop learning, that's when you're in trouble. I figure learning to be equivalent of constantly floating when you're in a swimming pool. You're moving. And you can learn. I just learned stuff last week and the week after, and it makes me a better person inside and outside the ring. How I teach now is not how I taught 16 years ago. You learn, you get the knowledge, you apply it, it becomes wisdom, then you implicate the wisdom, and it improves everybody around you.
You've lived many experiences through all this 21-year career. It's incredible. You've wrestled for companies like Ring of Honor. You did a tour with Ring of Honor, also TNA, I think. You've been in the New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo. You had a bunch of guys, big names as rivals, just as Kevin Steen, El Generico, and also Sabu. We will talk about Sabu later on. But from all your experiences, what and who have you learned the most from?
Wow. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out off the bat.
I know it's difficult.
I'll tell you, Sylvain Grenier, former 4-time WWE Tag Team Champion, he's the one that really broke down psychology of a match. Like, I had an idea. I was a student in the game before I became a wrestler, so I used to watch matches and study them to the point that my father would be like, yo, if you would study your math or your English or your history, like you study these tapes, you'd be the Black Albert Einstein. So I used to study, and it would stick in my brain. So when I did matches years later, I would try to kind of emulate what Ric Flair did, what Randy Savage did, like all the guys that I was impressed with. So my ring psychology was okay, but it was really Sylvain that broke down how to start a match, how to do this, how to do that. And he was taught by Pat Patterson.
Yep.
So that was like something that was marking. I'm trying to figure out some other people, because there's definitely people. Like when I went to the dojo, as you mentioned, the New Japan Dojo, it taught me that I could surpass what I thought mentally, physically I could do. When you go to the dojo, they're telling you to do 1,500 push-ups, 1,500 Hindu squats, 1,500 crunches, with breaks every 500, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So as they're telling me this, because my instructor was Kendo Kashin, he's saying this, and I'm in a room with, like Rocky Romero to the left of me, Alex Kozlov to the right, Finn Balor next to me,
Yep.
Daniel Pruder. So, like, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up with these guys around. But at the same time, I'm like, yo, the most we used to do in football was like 50 push-ups or 50 crunches or 50. So now they're telling. So after doing this, like even skip rope, like the last time I skip rope was probably in day camp, you know what I mean, when I was like 8 or 9 years old. And then they're telling, okay, before we even start the workout, you got to do 10 minutes of skip rope. So I found out that I was able to do stuff. And that taught me, don't be confined by what you think you can't do. Assume that you can do anything. Life tries to put you in a box, gives you parameters. You can't do this or you shouldn't do that. And that's usually basically because those people have never attempted those things or feel that they couldn't do it. And then they put that on you and then you live with that. You know what I mean? Yep. So to a certain degree, I wasn't so much like that. Like, you know, at that time, being a pro wrestler, when you told somebody being a pro wrestler, they're like, you're never going to be a pro wrestler. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to show you. So I had confidence. But after that experience at the dojo, I felt like there's nothing I can't do once I put my mind to it. And that is something that I teach my students. So dojo, I would say, and then I had a lot of great, like Pat Patterson would tell me stuff. I spoke to, I'm just trying to figure out so many people because people will come and give you advice. Like, you know, I'd sit down, I'd be on a tour with Axe and Smash from Demolition, and Smash took a liking to me. You know what I mean? He'd be like, you know, I'd walk into the locker room, and you know, I would sit down and talk to him. Then the next day, if there wasn't any room, I'd go to the other locker room, and Smash would be like, hey, where you going? We'll make some room here. Sit down. And I'm sitting down, and I'm listening to these stories, and I'm gaining knowledge. Same thing with Sabu. When the second time I met Sabu, you know, we were talking before our match, and we weren't talking about the match. We were talking about the Detroit wrestling scene, his psychology on matches, you know, when he was in ECW, what his uncle, the Sheik, the Almighty Sheik did. So the whole idea is that you absorb these, and it's like plates of armor, and it starts making you bigger and bigger until you become the juggernaut. You know what I mean? So, anyways.
There's so many big names in your career, of course, and you said once that was Sabu. Tell us briefly what it's like to be in the same ring fighting Sabu. Dude,
it was it was amazing because I was a fan of Sabu, still am.
Yeah. And
my favorite feud in ECW was Taz versus Sabu.
Yeah.
And I've had some people have made some like, oh, you remind us a little bit like Taz. So I used to always be like, wow, you know, Taz versus Sabu. It was phenomenal. So now when I get in the match with him, and like I said, before talking to him, I realized how cool he was and how he was just a really cool guy. You know what I mean? He went out of his way to make me feel comfortable, which he didn't have to do. But getting in the ring, you know, it was a markout moment because I'm sitting down. Like right now, if I run right now, I can show you. I have a DVD, Sabu in Japan. Like I was a fan of him, and I copied a lot of the things that he did. As far as gear-wise, he always had different gear. And in my other persona as Soa Min, I got that from him. He had 15 different, outfits. I needed to have 15 different outfits. In fact, the way he does the Cobra Clutch as Soa Min, that's the same way I do it. So to have somebody as somebody that I grew up watching and then being in the ring and then having a great match with them, it was good. Because I fought. Sorry, go on. I don't mean to cut you off, but I fought other heroes of mine, and it wasn't the same experience. But you know, they always tell you, never meet your idols. Well, he was an idol that I met, and I was happy to meet him.
That's great. I thought it must be intense because Sabu is Sabu, of course. Maybe it's one of your inspirations, but I will be scared if I'm with Sabu at the same ring, and I've seen footage of your match, and oh my god, those tables! I remember, I think it was a table and a chair, maybe, and I don't know if you get hurt that day a lot with Sabu.
Well, I did get hurt, but here's the thing:
Mm-hmm.
as an athlete, your confidence has to be number one, and without sounding arrogant, I think I'm the greatest. You have to. Every wrestler has to feel I'm the best. Mm-hmm. And first of all, I know I can go with anybody, healthy or not healthy. I know my background. I have a background in submission wrestling, boxing. I could chain with anybody. I could wrestle. I could be tough with anybody. I could do hardcore. There's nothing I can't do. And like I said, my character, Dru Onyx, is arrogance. So as far as pain, what happened was I was the NWA North American champion the night before. Well, I was still a champion, but the night before I was in Quebec, and I fought this gentleman, and he hurt my jaw. So my jaw was really bruised at that night. So the next night I'm fighting those guys. I was okay until the last clothesline from PCO, Pierre Carl Ouellet. He hit me. And it's not any fault of his own, whatever. It's a physical sport. Like, if wrestling was a complete legitimate sport, I would still do it. And I know there's so many other people that wouldn't. So I will never complain about bumps and bruises. Once you're moderately safe with me, or say you have to be safe, but once you're that way. So anyways, he hit me, and that was the only time my jaw. And then Sabu hit me with the Arabian face buster, and it landed on my jaw again. But what was crazy was after the match, he's like, I hurt you. And I told him, don't worry about it. He's like, no, I hurt you and I'm sorry. So, you know what I mean? He was cool all the way around. But yeah, going through the tables, you're going to feel it. It's gravity. You can't fake gravity. Somebody jumps from a certain way and he lands on you. You're going to feel the impact, you know, no matter how safe he's trying to be with you. But no, that was a fun match. And it was cool because, you know, I was in a match, in a promotion that I wasn't in, that I didn't have any relations, but the promoter thought, hey, in order to have this match what I needed, I'm going to go get this outsider. So I wasn't somebody that was wrestling in that particular promotion all the time, but I came back to fight Sabu, because when he called me and he said, hey, you know what? We want you to fight Sabu. I said, let me get back to you on that. But already in my head, I was like, I'm in there, you know, but I didn't want to look and sound overzealous, you know what I mean? But I met him in TNA, Sabu, a week before, and he was cool. So when he saw me, he saw the connection, and everything was good. One of my favorite matches of all time.
Let's talk about your school. In 2004, you found Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo. But how and why was Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo born?
Well, originally I wanted to. There's a boxer called Ricky Hatton. He was a former world champion. I can't remember what division, but like in a smaller division, and he had his own gym, and that freaked me out. So he could train at his own gym, and I'm like, one of these days I need a facility where I could constantly train, and then train other people. So if I train other people and they get good, it's like swords sharpening swords. They're good, I'm good, and we'll all elevate. So that was my original thought. And I was always impressed when you heard about like in England, in Wigan, the snake pit, the Lion's Den in California with Shamrock, the dungeon with Stu Hart. So I've always loved, you know what I mean, a bunch of lions just working together. So then later on, I was in a promotion where in order to get some revenue and fresh talent, they asked me and another international wrestler, Lufisto, to work the school. So when we're talking about it, once again, I wanted a name like the Snake Pit, the Dungeon, the Lion's Den. So I'm like, okay, I don't know, maybe the Scorpion's Nest, or I couldn't figure out. And then I said, you know what? Torture Chamber. Because that's what it is. You come in there, you bust your ass, but when you walk out, you know, you're better. It's almost like the equivalent of the X-Men. They have the danger room where they go in there and they sharpen their swords and they come out and they Wu-Tang it. So that was it. And then because of a lot of bookings that Lufisto had, we parted amicably. It wasn't anything bad. It just, she came in, she said, listen, I'm doing a lot of shows. I'm doing out of town. I'm not going to be able to commit. Can you handle this? So I said, yeah. And since then, it was just constant. And after I came back from the New Japan Dojo, I already had in my head, how did I want it? I wanted to have mats, and I wanted to have an amateur wrestling mat or Olympic wrestling mat and a ring and stuff. So I patterned it. If you look at my dojo and you look like the original New Japan Dojo, it's a copy. That's the reference. So that's the reason why I wanted it originally. That's why it was named. And since then, we've had hundreds of people coming in.
That's great. One of them is this Spaniard wrestler called Victor La Pulga.
Yes.
Yeah. We have
The man.
him a couple of months ago. What do you think about Victor?
Well, I thought the world of him, or I wouldn't have told him to come here. When I went, I did a tour in Spain a few years ago, and I did a wrestling seminars, and I did it in Madrid and Barcelona. And he was in Barcelona because at the time he was wrestling for Riot. And when they picked me up from the airport, he was in the back seat, I was in the front, and the owners of Riot, or the trainers or whatever, all they were talking about is how he's the greatest wrestler in Spain. And he's being modest and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, all right. And then when we did the seminar, which originally was supposed to be 3 hours, but it ended up to be 5 just because everything was moving. These guys were being productive. It was just a good experience. And after 5 hours the first day, because then after that we did 3 hours the second day, it was him that shined. Another gentleman named Bad Boy, he shined, and a few other, Alex, Alex Ace. So, but it was Victor that I noticed. He was on point, listened to instructions, executed his stuff, and I noticed how smooth he was. You know what I mean? He had a ballet dancer's grace, and I don't mean that I'm saying in a positive way. He's just smooth. He was smooth. He was Sugar Ray Robinson smooth, and I noticed that with his execution and his movement. So then after that, he was dropping me off. We went and ate. And then he dropped me off to the hotel. And then after that, we were going to go back and go to restaurants and have tapas. That was the first time I ever had tapas with him and a couple of guys. Oh, amazing. I got to go back to Spain. But anyways, when we were talking, so after we ate and before he dropped me off to the hotel, he was telling me, him and another person that he was with, was telling me that he was going to England because he wanted to learn and stuff like that. And I told him, England's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But you really need to come to my school. If you come to my school and you bring this energy, I will do everything possible to get you to the next point. And at that time, the next point was getting a WWE tryout. So he came down first time for a little stint. Then he came back a second stint, and now he's here. He's an asset to my promotion because he's one of my top stars. In fact, one year, I think the year before, he had match of the night with 2 of the other individuals. He's entertaining. The crowd loves him. In class, he's a hard worker. He doesn't like to tolerate BS, which is perfect because neither do I. So he makes people around them step up, and I need that. I want people to hold account of who they are as a trainee or as a wrestler, and elevate the people around you. And like I said before, I wanted those type of people around me. So now we're in the process. He's been with me for almost 3 years. And now we're in the process of getting him that tryout for WWE. Prior to him, I've sent about 5 or 6 people from my camp. And I also when the talent was asking me about other former students or other people in Quebec, because there was a Canadian tryout here, I was also telling them, yeah, these guys are good. Yeah, give these guys an opportunity. Give these guys an opportunity. So, but at that time, there's a pecking order. So even though he came, I already had a list of my guys who've been faithful, who've been loyal, who've worked hard. So once they were gone from the list, he was the next one. So right now, he's the next one. So now we're just in talks to making sure that, the reason why he came here, and it's not just for a WWE tryout. I know as a coach, I'm one of the best coaches in the world, and I know I can help his game. He was deemed or known to be as a high flyer. Since he's been to my school, he's rounded out his fighting style. He can do mat wrestling. Not that he couldn't do it before, but now he can rely on his mat wrestling, his chain wrestling, and also his high flying. I feel his understanding of ring psychology and ring placements and presence is better. And I really believe that he's going to do well.
We're so happy for Victor as well as for Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo. But let's talk about now Kevin Owens or Kevin Steen, wherever you want to call him. One of the sentences Kevin said was this, and I quote, "If I hadn't trained here before my WWE tryout, I wouldn't have made it." What does the phrase mean to you, and what does Kevin Owens mean to you?
You see the smile on my face, like, yo, that dude, I can't say enough. You know what? It's hard because every time I talk about how much I like this guy and how proud I am of him, is just I don't even know where to start, but I'm going to. Him saying, because once again, every once in a while, like I don't really care what other people think for the most part, but it's always nice to be validated by your peers. And he is at such a platform because he's working for the WWE. All eyes are on him. All eyes are watching on him. And just by him mentioning that at the Chris Jericho podcast, at my school, wherever he does, like he just said that. He just said that. Recently, he spoke to Sidney Bateman, who's another person who worked at my school, who's currently wrestling at the WWE. They met, and he said, "Hey, I trained at the Chamber too. Chamber got me ready also." So, just the fact that he's going out and letting people know that, it adds validity, professionalism to my school. It gives me a sense of I know my curriculum, what I do is right. He came in here, he busted his ass. I've said it on other podcasts, but just to give a small frame, he came to the school, wanted to get and train with the rest of the young lions and work out, and he sweat buckets. Like, he didn't come in and got I'm Kevin Steen treatment, ROH champion. He did not care that he was a former world champion or that he's been all around the world. He came in there and he gutted it. And then when I went to the Performance Center, I had a chance to speak to Matt Bloom. And this story, I never said anything, but we're in the office. And when Kevin Steen was mentioned, he said, you know what impressed us was his heart, how he didn't quit. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. You know what I mean? So he showed that. He showed it at my school, and then he transported it there and showed that essence. So, it was something that he was a little bit concerned about. But after training with me, going there, it was good. So, yeah, he's the champ, man. And, it's another thing, another story that I never said, and you're getting it, exclusive. I always had this quote that I actually got. Like, I said this quote, and no one ever knows where I got it from, but I got it from Tupac, the rap artist. He goes, I may not be the person to be president, but I'll be the inspiration. And I said something along the lines like, I'll never be world champion, but I'm going to train a world champion. And that's my motto, because I want, at one point, because if you check down the history of a world champion, at one point, it's going to get mentioned who trained him. You know what I mean? And it's always happened. So I'm like, okay, well, if I can't get to that level, I'll piggyback by training somebody on that level. And I remember he emailed me one time and he said, hey, I heard you say this quote once about, you'll never, you won't be a world champion, but you'll train one. He goes, even though I didn't come up, like he didn't start off as a student with me. He just came for training. He goes, even though I wasn't trained from you from jump, considered that checked off your list because I'm the universal champion. So as far as I'm concerned, you trained a world champion. And I was like,
Wow.
So
you're mind blowing.
Yeah. So you can't say anything bad about Kevin Steen to me. Like I threatened people at a pay-per-view. We're watching a pay-per-view one time. Somebody was like bad mouthing him. I turned around and say another thing, you're going to be eating your sneakers. And he's like, and then all of a sudden, he's not that bad. He can do a 450, but yeah. So that's it. That's my thought. Yeah. You can't talk shit. But that's it. But that's about loyalty. Like friends are the type of people that will defend you when you're not there. Do you understand? So you can't say anything bad about him.
Yeah.
And if you say, and I'm not anybody's perfect, but there's good. Like this guy's universal champion, been around the world, wrestled in the top promotions, wrestled some of the top people, and then people want to nitpick. It's just jealousy. It's envy. So those are the things that are not allowed to be in my circumference.
Yeah. You were in 2013. You were in the back then developmental territory of WWE for that championship wrestling. You trained there, and also correct me if I'm wrong. Last month on February, you were to the Performance Center as a guest coach. What is your relationship with WWE, and what does it mean for you that they count on you for this kind of trainings?
Well, I have a good relationship with the WWE. I'm just knocking wood. Just continue. I hope so.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, no, it was good. I went to the performance center. I busted my ass. I wanted to let them know that I could be an asset to them. They saw that. They allowed me to work as an agent for their house shows, for two of the shows, well, three of the shows technically. They allowed me to be in the ring and start working with talent that now you see in TV now, but when they first got there. And they trusted my judgment. You know, first impressions are very important, and you have to impress people with your best side. So going there, and the people that they had there, they have some of the best coaches in the world. And at the time, they also had Johnny Saint there, and I got to hang out with him, and I got to pick his brain. And they saw how much I loved the job, how much I was willing to work. I went there, I got there. You know, they said to be there, just say at 9. I was there at 8 o'clock. They said we could leave at 2. I would stay after to watch the promo. Randy Katz, who's the person that's in charge of their promos, how to do promos and stuff. They would have promo classes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I wasn't required to be there, but I stayed there. And then after, from 9 to 5, so after the promo class was finished, I would stay there an extra hour to write down all the notes. So even when the cleaning people would come in, I was up besides, no, not even. The secretary was already gone, and I would be there on the computer just working when I was finally leaving. So I would be getting back to the hotel at 7 to be there at 8 o'clock. So they saw my dedication. They saw how serious I wanted to. I was asking questions. I wasn't just there watching. Robbie Brookside was the person that was in charge of the beginners. So they're the beginners. So I wanted to know what was his mentality, what was his psychology dealing with beginners, so that way it can improve my game when I have beginners. You know what I mean? Norman Smiley, who I knew from FCW, who was very inspiring because that was a brutal tryout, and he supported me. So he remembered me, and I'd pick his brain, and he was my co-agent for one of the matches. So being not co-agent, a producer. So being a producer, for those who don't know, you're the person that is watching the match, giving the times to the referee to let the referee know what to tell the wrestlers. Okay, we have 6 minutes left. We have 5 minutes left. There's hard cams where the cameras are situated. I'm sometimes telling them, okay, they're away from the hard cam. Tell them to position themselves or work themselves to whichever side that was needed. I also would tell them when the commercial break is. So they would know, okay, this is a commercial. When it's a commercial, there's a certain sequence that you need to do during that time. So then when I tell the referee, okay, in 10 seconds, the commercial is going to be finished, he's giving that information. And then Norman Smiley would be writing down all the information that he's seeing. So that way that information is then sent to Hunter, Triple H, and then he will be able, or Matt Bloom. And then once they process all that information, they have something called Skull Session, where they bring in the workers who were working that show and other people who weren't working the show, and go through the match and read all the notes that were written. And so it's a whole process. So I was fortunate enough to produce 2 shows, one night and then another night. And then also agent a match, once again with Norman Smiley, whereas they're about to have a match, and Norman would handle the psychology, which and how to put the match together, because he's a master of that. What I would add would be like, or what I felt like I needed to add was to add like the showmanship. Okay, make sure you do this. You know, pull a taunt here. Show your character. Show your character even before you come out. Let them know who you are, so that way you're telling the narrative even before you get in the ring, so they know to boo you, to cheer you. You don't want that when somebody comes out. So those were the things I was giving information on. And then when I had to agent some matches, like I had to agent a match with Drew Gulak and a masked wrestler, Menelik.
Menelik, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have to say anything. I just told them what the finish was, and that was it. I didn't have to agent anything. All I had to do was just give them minutes. And then there was some other guys who may have not had a wrestling background, and it was their like 3rd or 4th match. Then, you know, we would work certain things. So, yeah, definitely a cool experience. All to say is, because they saw me do that and how diligent I was, and I was committed to be excellent, they then said, okay, well, what do you want? And I'd say, hey, I want to be able to get my students in here, and they trusted me with that. So the first person that went down was a wrestler, Dominique Boulanger. He was the first guy that went, and the feedback when he came back, even though he didn't get signed, was Matt Bloom wrote to me and said, "You did well. You prepared him well." And sometimes you'll have opportunities, and just because they didn't hire you, is not that, at that time they may not be looking particularly for what you are, or whatever the case is. It's almost like an ice cream store. You know what I mean? They have all different flavors, but right now they're only selling chocolate. So if you're vanilla, it's not that you're not good ice cream, but right now. And also sometimes you might need more seasoning. Same thing would happen. The second person I brought was Florence Lortie, and she came and she did well. And same thing, you know what I mean? Give her a little bit more experience, let her grow into her character, and we're going to invite her back. That was the reply that I got. So they are very happy, and they trust my judgment. They wouldn't have allowed me to have 5 people, 6 people, 5 people from my school. Then, because it's not just my school, it's just not like I'm going to promote only my guys. I'm a talent scout, so I watch, and there was another gentleman, Shelton Jean, from Ottawa, another province, and I saw what he was doing, and I said, okay, keep working hard, I'll give you the opportunity. And then I sent him. Then I sent 2 more from my students, and then I sent another gentleman for a tryout for UK NXT. All right, he was from Ireland, and I sent him from over there. So I'm all about looking for talent. And even, like, I have no bias. Whether I like you or not, if I feel you're qualified. There was a Canadian tryout. There's some people that were former students that left and went elsewhere. There's other people that we may not agree on the same psychology or whatever. But when their names were mentioned to me, I did not badmouth anybody, because my feelings, my emotions should not transcend my observations. If I think that you are qualified, I will do everything to give you that opportunity.
Do you see yourself as a future permanent WWE coach if they offer you the opportunity?
I hope they're watching this podcast. Most definitely. Make that happen. I don't know what I have to do. No, but yeah, I can see that. But you know what? It's all about putting in your time and this opportunity and being at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. So, I work with the people specifically, directly, who make decisions for tryouts. In fact, I was just speaking with somebody just a week ago, sending Victor's information in. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
And if they gave me an opportunity, right now they're opening different. Like, they have a UK NXT.
Yep.
Rumor has it they might do something in India. China has a big mass population. It would make sense if they do decide to do something like that. And if they ever did Matt Bloom said, because when I told him after how much he inspired me, I updated my dojo. I moved to a bigger location that kind of almost facilitated, like, it was like a NXT performance center on a budget. You know what I mean? It was 2 floors. It has like my gym now upstairs. There's a media room. There's dorm. There's a boxing. There's a wrestling ring. There's a mat. There's a weight room. All the things I saw at the performance center. And so when I called them and I told them and I sent them the pictures and stuff like that. And at one point for the Canadian tryouts, they asked me, "What's your specs?" Because there could have been a possibility that the tryout would have been here, but it was too small. But he called it NXT North. So if they ever do an NXT North and they're looking for qualified instructors, I would love to be on that list.
We will wait until that happens, because I'm sure that will happen in a near future. One of the last recent experiences that you have was portraying Abdul the Butcher in one of the episodes of Dark Side of the Ring. And in other occasions, in other interviews, you said that you had to prepare yourself for portraying him, because you don't walk like him, you don't wrestle like him. Tell us about how did you prepare for portraying Abdullah the Butcher?
Because even though I played the son of Abdullah,
yeah, of course,
we're different. Like he didn't really wrestle, he didn't really take bumps, he did, and I'm a better worker than he is. You know what I mean? But he's a legend. I'm not to take away. I'm just talking about the technical aspect of it. So basically, I just watched a lot of his films, his matches, him with Brody, him against the Funks, him against anybody. You know what I mean? And then I just try to get his mannerisms and stuff like that. So he has a certain walk that he does. He waddles, but you know what I mean? He has like this. So I was walking like that. And even then, like when we were on the set, just his hand mannerisms, you know what I mean? Like when he talks, when he says stuff, he likes to put his hands here. So I was just watching his interviews, and I was watching because I wanted to make it as realistic as possible. You know what I mean? Even how he wrestles, what he does, the moves that he does, and how he does them. And even at one point, I was talking to the directors.
Yep. And
one of the producers for The Dark Side was there. I said, hey, you know, because we had to do scenes inside the ring and outside the ring. And these guys were well-versed. They had, like, clothes that he wore, like the type that he would wear.
Yep.
I had to shave my beard, have the mustache. I would do the tape job like how he did his tape job. But at one point I said in interviews, he has cigars sometimes when he talks. The producer ran across the street, got a cigar, brought it back to me, just so I could add it to the personality. So to get into it, I dressed like him, and I always tell my students, if you look like the person, dress like the person, act like the person, you become the person. So that was it. So I had the gear, I had the props, I had the walk, and then I just channeled, you know what I mean, his energy and how he talked and stuff like that. And I hope I did him justice. People liked it. People liked the portrayal. Sadly, the person who was playing Brody, Joseph Hudson, he passed away just a few days ago. Yeah. So that was sad. I watched that episode just yesterday or 2 days ago just to see it again. It's that series is amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible, and season 3 is coming. Is coming up this year. Life is based on decisions, and there are times where those decisions that you made are good, are wrong, or some of them that they're not. But only time can judge that. What decision do you think changed your life as a professional wrestler? And if you could, what other decision that you'd made you wouldn't make nowadays?
There's a couple. One, it sounds bad, but I don't mean it so, and hopefully I'll explain. I should have been a little bit more selfish. And it sounds bad, but at times this could be a selfish sport.
Yep.
And what I mean is, there's opportunities that you have, and I'm always like, you know, I'm a team player. Even though sometimes I think, you know, I would be best suited to do this, I should do this. Like, just say, for example, the promoter, the booker for ROH, I had a match against Romantic Touch that you mentioned before. And he said to me, so I asked him, what's going to be the finish? Like, who's going to win? And he's like, you decide. It's on you. Like, he had that much faith in me. He's like, you decide however you want to finish it, you finish it. So the gentleman that I had, and he was really cool. And but he was a former tag team champion. They already know who he is. He's already established.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you know, lately I haven't been winning anything recently. So I wouldn't mind if I had the win. So I said, yeah, no problem. But in the same sense, it's my first time there. A win would add some prestige to my name. Not that winning or losing matters to me, because if I'm a heel, if I lose, I won. That's my applause. I did my job. It's like a bad guy in a movie complaining about that he didn't beat Superman. It doesn't make sense. But at that time, afterthought, if I would have just told him, you know, I understand that, that's cool, but this is my opportunity. I didn't think that I was going to get the over. This would really help me. Would you mind doing the honors? You know what I mean? So it's all about presentation. If I would have presented it like that, I don't think he would have had a problem with it, and that would have been better. So there was a lot of situations where, you know, that or sometimes, you know, you make choices to help other people, and even though you may know their characteristics or you know their behavior, you're hoping that your movements will influence them to do better. That's not always the case. So where my gut was telling me not to deal with this person or that promoter or that wrestler or that training, you always want to wish for always the best. But sometimes, you know what I mean? A snake is a snake. A rat is a rat. You know what I mean? Deal with them accordingly. So that's it. But other than that, I wish I maybe would have realized my potential, because it was Pat Patterson who saw me at a show and asked me, why am I not trying out for the WWE? He's like, how come I didn't know you? So once again, it's about parameters. You know what I mean? Like, I may act like I'm arrogant or confident, but I'm a very chill person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So sometimes I don't believe, and it happens to people. You may not believe how great or what you can do. I didn't have that Muhammad Ali, I'm the greatest. That, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would have like realized my potential earlier and then dedicate more on that. But other than that, I had a lot of fun, good years, won multiple championships, met a lot of amazing people. So I don't have too many regrets.
As a trainer, what is the most valuable advice that you give to your students or somebody that wants to be a professional wrestler?
Dedicate to your art. You know what I mean? Be realistic with your goals. You got to first be in shape. Then be in shape, you got to learn how to be an athlete. Then from an athlete, you can be a wrestler. From a wrestler, you can learn to be a worker. You have to understand that when you get into this world of professional wrestling, you can still be a fan, but don't act like a fan. A lot of times, you have preconceived notions of what wrestling is. You got to move them to the side. Come in with an open mind, eyes open, ears open, mouth shut. Just listen and learn, and give 110%. A lot of people in wrestling, see, it's not like any other disciplines like boxing or jiu-jitsu, where you could train for boxing or jiu-jitsu and not become a boxer or a jiu-jitsu practitioner. You don't have to be in the MMA. So this is what I would tell my students. To dedicate to your art, perfect your craft, commit to excellence. Don't waste your time. Like I said before, you have to be in shape then learn how to become an athlete. From an athlete, you got to learn to be a wrestler, and from there you can become a worker. Know the game mentally, physically. Ask questions. There's no stupid questions. And really study your art form. Everybody in every genre of sport, the ones who make it are the ones who are the most dedicated. So I would tell them that if you want to be a wrestler, you got to get out of that fan mentality. And whatever your notions are as a fan is totally different once you get into the world of professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. And just give it your all.
Mm-hmm. Last question. What's the future for Dru Onyx? Do you see yourself competing as a professional wrestler for the next few years, or do you see more like just establishing as a coach, only as a coach and promoter, and not only as a professional wrestler?
It really depends. Like before the pandemic, I felt like maybe I got 1 more year, 2 more years left. But since the pandemic, I dropped weight, got into better shape, 30 pounds off my frame. A lot of my injuries are healed up.
Perfect.
So actually, through a negative, there's been a positive with this COVID. Yeah. It allows me to add more lease to my wrestling career. Currently, right now, there's a documentary being done on me.
Oh, that's great.
And yeah. So as the documentary are watching, are filming me, we didn't get any aspects of doing any new shows. So I'm going to promote. I'm going to do some matches. There's a few people I haven't wrestled yet that I'd like to get my hands on. And there's a few more places. I'd like to go back to Spain. I'd like to go to Japan. I'd like to go to the States. There's a few more places that I'd like to wrestle before I hang up. But then the emphasis... Excuse me.
No problem.
The emphasis is going to be like the transitional aspect of it. To be a promoter, promote shows, coaching, continue coaching. I also have my hands in a choreography for TV and films here locally. I've participated in a few movies and a few TV shows where I was a consultant for pro wrestling. So I'd like to get, excuse me. not COVID. Excuse me.
What's wrong with that?
So, I want to do some voice acting, and just tie it all together. So entertainment, using wrestling as a medium in these different things. So that's what I can see the trajectory of the rest of my career to be.
We'll be watching you. We'll be watching what Torture Chamber Pro Wrestling Dojo has in store for the next few months, few years. And I'm sure we have another conversation in the near future to talk about more about your career, because you have an extensive career. And in just one interview, we cannot talk all of it. Dru, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, and hope to talk to you very, very soon.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you once again for having me. Thank you for the intelligent questions. And I just want to let people know that if they want to continue to follow me or the school on Instagram, it's TC Pro Dojo for the Twitter, Instagram, or even Facebook, TC Pro Dojo. And for Dru Onyx, you can find me on Facebook, Andrew Blackett. On Instagram and Twitter, it'll be Dru Onyx. That's it.
Thank you so much.
And if anybody wants, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If anybody wants any information about the school, also druonyx@gmail.com. There, I'm done.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Dru.
No problem. Take it easy.